Hi everybody. Today we are talking about ellipses. So with the equation of ellipse, I've written it down here. X minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1, or sometimes a and b are flipped. And I've also written down a few important key things for you to remember. A is the bigger number, and it gives the distance of vertices from the center. That's important, from the center, the distance between there. B is the smaller number, and it gives the distance to the co-vertices from the center. Remember, it's always from the center. And then A and B go in the direction of the variable they are under. So in this case, A would go in the x direction, B would go in the y direction, or opposite here, B would go in the x direction, A would go in the y direction. So that makes things easy. Your center is at HK, and your foci, remember you have to remember this equation, c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So let's use what we know. Basically, we're using everything that we know to write the equation in standard form, if not already, and identify the vertices, covertices, foci of the ellipse. So what does it mean to be in standard form? Well, it's got to equal 1. This up here is standard form. So to get 100 equal to 1, I need to divide by 100, and we know that what we do on one side of the equation, we have to do on the other. So you could always do this in your calculator, but I think you could handle it. We've got x squared divided by 10 plus y squared divided by 4 equals 1. We just reduce our fractions. So a is the bigger number, so that means a squared equals 10. So a equals plus or minus square root 10. Can't reduce it. And b squared equals 4, so b equals plus or minus 2. So our center, well, it's just x and y squared, and that's really like x plus 0 squared. So we've got 0, 0 for the center, which is always wonderful. A, remember A up here, goes in the direction of what it's under, and it gives the distance between the vertex, the vertices, and the center. So the center is at 0, 0, and my A value is in the x direction, so I take my x value of 0, and I'm going to add plus or minus square root 10, comma 0. Right, I'm going square root 10 in that direction from the center. And it's nice when it's 0 because we're only going from 0, but it's not always 0, so that's why I always write that. The co-vertices match with B, the smaller number, so B is plus or minus 2. So I've got my center in the y direction because B is under y, 0, comma 0 plus or minus 2. So that means 0, comma plus or minus 2, which again, if you forgot, is 0, 2, and 0, negative 2. It's just faster to write plus or minus for the co-vertices. And then for the foci, I know I've got c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So c squared equals 10 minus 4. So c squared equals 6. Square root that. I've got plus or minus square root 6. And your foci always go with your vertex. They're on the same axis, so in the x direction. So here we've got x direction and y direction. So my foci are going in the x direction. So 0 plus or minus square root 6, comma 0, which is just plus or minus 6, comma 0. Right, I don't need that, 0 plus. So that's all the information, and then maybe you would be asked to graph this, but you already know how to do that. So today we're just identifying information. Number 2, this is in standard form. When it says right in standard form, it is because it's equal to 1. So a squared equals 16. Remember, a is the bigger number. So a is plus or minus 4. And this is in the x direction because it's under x. B squared equals 4. So b equals plus or minus 2 in the y direction. And my center here is 2, negative 3. So my vertices go with my bigger number, which is 4. So I've got 2 plus or minus 4, comma negative 3. And I'm going to write those both because I can, right? I know how to do 2 plus 4. That's 6, negative 3. 2 minus 4 is negative 2, negative 3. So you can, if you can, do the math. Co-vertices, so I'm going to go with B in the y direction because B is under y. So 2 is going to stay the same, and then I've got negative 3 plus or minus 2. So that's b. So that's 2 comma negative 1, because negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1, and negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. So they're my covertices. Then my foci, got my equation, a squared minus b squared. So c squared equals 16 minus 4. So c squared equals 12. Need to reduce. I've got plus or minus 2 root 3. So that's in the x direction. Remember, foci and vertices are in the same direction. So 2 plus or minus 2 root 3, comma, negative 3. Again, because it's always from the center, so don't forget that. And I can't combine 2 and 2 root 3 because they are not like terms, so I just leave it like that. All right, so the other type of problem you're going to see is write the equation of the ellipse given the characteristics and center. So in order to write an equation, you need HK, which is the center, and a squared and b squared values, right? Because if you look back at the equation, my variables, I always have x and y. We're never going to fill those in, but I need HK, a squared, and b squared to make this an equation. Kind of like another example here. In example 2, I have HK, a squared, b squared. So I need all that information. So they're only going to give you some, though, so you might have to figure out how to find the missing pieces. My center is at 0, 0. So what I'm going to do first is just write x squared over plus y squared over equals 1. Because that I know is always going to be true. And since it's x plus 0 and y plus 0, I'm just going to write it as x squared plus y squared. Okay, so they tell me that the vertex is 15. So the vertex goes with the bigger number, which is a, equals 15, which is in the x direction, right? That's in the x spot. So I don't need a, I need a squared. So if I square both sides, 15 squared is 225. Since the vertex is going in the x direction, I need to put 225 underneath the x. And then the focus, again, is 12. But the only thing I know about my foci is that I have an equation. Excuse me. Wow, okay. A squared minus b squared. Well, I know that c is 12, so c squared is 144. A squared is 225 minus b squared. So when you solve for b squared, you get 81. But you don't need to take the square. You're not solving for b. You need b squared. Remember, b squared goes under here. That's what we're missing. So your 81 goes there. And there you have finished your equation. So if they give you the focus, you got to use your equation to find your missing variable. So let's go to example 4. Just about done here. They're giving me two different pieces of information now. They're giving me the vertex and the covertex, so it's just a little bit different. But the center is still at 0, 0. So I'm going to start that as x squared y squared equals 1, because it's going to be in standard form. And now my vertex is in the y direction, but that means a equals 6 with my vertex. So a squared equals 36. 6 squared is 36. But since this is in the y spot, my 36 is going under the y. And the cool thing about when they give you your co-vertex, that's giving you b already. B equals negative 2. So b squared equals positive 4. Remember, negative 2 squared, and negative times a negative is a positive. So that's cool. It goes under the x because it's in the x direction. And we are done. So not too bad. You just have to remember all the things that you know about an ellipse, and you should be able to do these no problem. All right, come prepared with any questions that you might have, and we'll talk to you the next time we meet. See you then.